Engineer Dideji, thank you so much for staying with me. Now, Dr. Amadi says, last year the process of the unbundling and the activities of the electricity companies and generating companies was quite transparent. There was a whole lot of accountability. And, not a lot of people, agree, because he's speaking from the regulatory point of view. But from your assessment, would you feel that, yes, that, there was a lot of transparency and accountability in the way the electricity and distribution companies actually handled themselves in 2014?
Well, from what we read in the papers, one would want to believe that the process was was transparent, and that's on one side. But I think what is important really is the performance, after the unbundling, and to make sure we have the effect on the consumers. I think that's the prime thing.
So that's what we want to look at.
That's what we want to really address. So because that's the subject matter. Well, the issue of transparency of the process or not, what we are more concerned at this stage is the way forward to make sure.
Well, sorry, Dr. Adediji. What I wanted us to talk about now was not the process, because we know that the process was transparent, and Dr. Amadi has actually also confirmed it. So what I want to talk about is the accountability and the transparency for 2014 post-privatization.
Privatization, Well, you talk of transparency in what sense? You mean the way
in their performance,
the
in handling consumers and customers' complaints?
Well, one at that stage really cannot really talk much of transparency. I think is the effectiveness of the performance, of this discourse and gencos, as you call it. With the consumers deal more with the discourse, and I think the major area of misunderstanding between consumers. Number one, inadequate power supply. Number two, controversy over the billing arrangements, which people feel hot. Number one, they're not getting enough power as required, as they demand or they need. Number two, they are being charged occasionally for what they cannot really verify, So these are the issues that need to be addressed. And for these people, for the discourse to succeed in the enterprise, it is very, very important to have the confidence of the consumers, and that's the way of metering. The metering process, the technology has to be well understood by both parties, the stakeholders, so to say, and there must be total confidence that nobody is being cheated, and this is why NEC, had done a good job by making sure that the issue of metering, you have the MITOs, that have been a kind of methodology that has been regulated by NEC to make sure both parties, neither of the two parties, is cheated.
So
it's a good thing.
In other words,
but the thing is, the box still more with the discourse.
So that's what I want to find out. Are you saying that there was proper synergy between the generating companies and the distribution companies and the regulatory bodies, more than what we saw between these companies and their customers?
No, let's put it this way. There are two, let me say, scenarios. One is between the gencos and the discos, because the genco supply the power to the discos. These are distribution companies. Thank God for the bulk metering trading company that kind of moderates the interface between the gencos and the discos. I don't think we have much crisis in that area. But I think the major areas that are being problematic is between the discos and general public consumers. NEC has done its own. It said, okay, make sure as many people as possible get prepayment meter, just like you have in telecommunication companies. You buy your credit, and then you see the way you consume your credit. Are you with me? If you have such a transparent process, nobody will raise eyebrow. But a lot of people, consumers, are complaining that they are either not metered, they are being estimated, they are given estimated invoices, which are contestable. But NEC is saying, look, you discos, make sure you provide meters for the consumers. And if you have no money, if you have issues of capital in getting the meters, okay, let the consumers pay into a bank, okay, and then you compensate them over time, for the money they have spent on the meter. So in my opinion, NEC has done its job. It's now left for the discos to ensure they carry the consumers along. Because the more they carry the consumers along and let them have their confidence, the more they will be able to listen to them, pay their bills, as at when due. That's very, very vital. Though we also have to realize that some consumers also have the tendency to default, okay? But there are ways out of that by having the right technology.
Having the right technology, that's true as well. Yeah. But hold on to that thought. Let me quickly get Dr. Amadi's reaction to that. Fortunately, he's here with us on the program. Dr. Amadi, thank you so much for staying with us on the program. Now, if you listen to Engineer Adedeji, he's saying one of the lows, at least, for 2014 was the fact that there was overbilling and there was there was lack of meters for consumers. Why did we have that issue? I know that the Nigeria Electricity Regulatory Commission, as much as possible, spoke to the distribution companies to ensure that this problem was addressed, but we still saw it at an all-time high last year.
Well, I think that is one of the real lows of this of the period, and I agree with him totally on that. The point is this: first, it's a legacy problem. For the last 20 or 30 years, we've not carried any significant metering until Jonathan started the reform in 2010. So we have a legacy of over 40 to 50% of metered consumers. Now, NEC came with the idea of capping, which is an innovative concept to meter consumers quicker and repay them. So instead of the discourse, pre-financing metering, consumers pre-finance and get to the budget. But the problem is that because the metering gap is too huge, many consumers are estimated. To solve the problem of overbilling, we came up with a methodology for estimation. And we have discovered that the discourse are not rigorously following it. I've argued that until consumers complain and be active because of that problem, because NEC will not be in every home to know how much we are being billed. So what we do is this: when consumers petition to disclose and copy us, we enforce. We've gone to people back to us and say, well, they bid me 8,000 a month. After I complain to NEC, they're now 4,000. So first line of action is every omitted consumer should benchmark his or her consumption with a metered consumer close by. So if it looks inordinately different, they have to complain to the DISCO. If it doesn't work, that's why we have the forum offices across the country where you can go and have people in the same community, engineers, human rights activists, decide the matter and make will enforce it. Ultimately, it can write to us. So we are doing three things. First, we are mandating aggressive metering. The reason why we did the new tariff and opened up the business plan of the DISCO is that they start day one in this new year, aggressively fulfilling their metering obligation. Of course, it will take some time before you close a metering gap of 60% in some DISCOs, like Benin. Two, we are going to do a lot more of monitoring. So we want consumers to complain. And therefore, when consumers complain, 2-3 consumers complain, and it will find out to be true, we'll penalize you what we call exemplary aggravated sanction, so that you can internalize the good conduct or be more prudent in estimation until you meet all the consumers. The third is this: the federal government is also coming up with
Dr. Madi,
to match metering, so that there be more metering in the sector. So I agree with the discussion that clearly metering and estimation of consumers was a low. And I want to apologize to consumers that we could do very little because it's a huge legacy gap of 20 years of total no financing of this sector. Now, look at this to be very important. When I talk about transparency, it's important to commend this government for transparency and lack of corruption in this sector. Is that that's the only thing that will stimulate investors to bring money. We talk about metering. To stop estimation, you have to meter every consumer. That means you have to have access to millions of dollars to meter. And those millions will come only when this sector, like Spain, is certified as the most transparent and less corrupt in Africa. So what we've achieved is not just theoretical, talking about corruption and transparency. Until there's transparency and accountability, until foreigners, investors, and local investors see a system as accountable, and they can see the price of cost recovery, they will not make those investments that we meet our consumers. You see, the problem is that there's a time lag. Everything that this government has done does not result immediate relief. And people think nothing has been done. No, things have been done. In the next 1 or 2 years, you will see a rapid improvement. Why? Because the government has bitten the bullet of investing in infrastructure and foundation of this market. We've created a market and accountable. And therefore, I believe that
Dr. Madi, we must take a break at this time. We'll come back and continue this conversation. So just please hold on to your thoughts. We'll come back and continue this conversation. You're watching Business Morning on Channels Television. On the program today, we've been reviewing the power sector, how the power sector fared in 2014. I've been having a conversation with the chairman, Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, Dr. Sam Amadi. He joins me on the program from our Abuja studio. And here in Lagos, I've been having a conversation also with a power engineering consultant, engineer Adekola Adedeji. Both gentlemen will be here when I return in just a moment. Please join us.